Kathryn Johanna Kulhman was born to a German parents in the small village of Concordia, Missouri on the 9th day of May 1907. She was one of 4 children. Her mother was a harsh disciplinarian who showed little love or affection. On the other hand, she had an extremely close and loving relationship with her father. Kathryn was converted when she was 14 at an evangelistic meeting held in a small Methodist church. When she was 16, she graduated from high school, which only went to 10th grade in their town. Her older sister Myrtle was married to an itinerant evangelist, Everett B. Peard. They spent their time traveling and asked that Kathryn could join them for this summer. Her parents agreed, and she went to Oregon to help out. She worked with them and often gave her testimony. She ended up working with them for 5 years. Kathryn joined the evangelistic team with her pianist friend named Helen Gulliford. In 1928, Everett missed a meeting in Boise, Idaho. Myrtle and Kathryn preached to cover for Everett. The pastor of the church encouraged Kathryn to step out on her own. Helen agreed to join her. In 1933, they moved into Pueblo, Colorado, and later moved to Denver and ended up in an abandoned truck garage, which they named Denver Revival Tabernacle. Kathryn was seeing a lot of success in Denver. The church grew to about 2,000 members. She began a radio show called Smiling Through and invited speakers from all over the country. One of them was Burroughs Waltrip. Waltrip was a bad news for Kathryn. He was a charismatic, handsome man several years older than she was. There was an immediate attraction between him and Kathryn, but he was married and had 2 children. Shortly after, he divorced his wife and abandoned his 2 sons. He then spread the story that his wife had left him. There was an ongoing relationship between Kathryn and Waltrip, and they married in September 1938. Despite several warnings to Kathryn regarding her relationship with Waltrip, Kathryn was naive about the consequences of her choices, and the marriage was a disaster. She announced to her church that she and Waltrip were married and they would go between Denver and Mason City, preaching at their 2 churches. Most of the people in her congregation left due to her relationship with Waltrip. She gave up her church in Denver, lost some of her closest associates, and moved to Mason City. Waltrip Radio Chapel station failed and went into bankruptcy. Kathryn's happy vision of she and her husband flying back and forth between Denver and Mason City with a successful preaching careers was utterly demolished. The next few years were very hard for the couple. They embarked on the road as traveling evangelists, primarily staying in the Midwest. They were not accepted in many places due to their marriage history. In 1944, Kathryn went on an evangelistic tour on the East Coast without Waltrip. It may have been a conscious decision to leave him, or she may also have taken the opportunity to reassess her life. Kathryn never returned to Waltrip, and they eventually divorced in 1947. She left her marriage behind and from then on acted as if it never existed in the first place. In one of the rare occasions, when she would talk of those years and what happened, she said, "I had to make a choice. Would I serve the man I loved or the God I loved? I knew I could not serve God and live with Mr." She called him Mr. from the very first time she met him. "No one will ever know the pain of dying like I know it, for I loved him more than I loved life itself. And for a time, I loved him even more than God. I finally told him I had to leave. God had never released me from that original call. Not only did I live with him, I had to live with my conscience, and the conviction of the Holy Spirit was almost unbearable. I was tired of trying to justify myself. It was 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. I felt I had come to a dead end in my life. The end of that dead end street is when I died. It was where I surrendered everything to Jesus, body, soul and spirit. As I walked there with tears streaming down my face, for the first time in my life, it was none of self and all of him. When I made that full and complete surrender of everything to Jesus, the Holy Spirit took the empty vessel, and that's all that he asks. That day was the dawn of the greatest day of my life. I had no real ministry until I walked down that little dead-end road and surrendered everything to him." In 1946, Kathryn was asked to speak in Franklin, Pennsylvania. She was well received and decided to stay in the area. Kathryn began preaching on radio broadcasts in Oil City, Pennsylvania. These became so popular they were picked up in Pittsburgh, and she was preaching throughout the area. She began to preach about the healing power of God. In 1947, a woman was healed of a tumor while listening to Kathryn preach. Several Sundays later, a man was also healed while she was teaching on the Holy Spirit. She was now convinced of God's healing work. One important thing to note is the context and timing of this breakout period in Kathryn's life. 1947 was the beginning of the healing revival, sometimes referred to as the latter rain revival, that would last for the next 10 years. What was happening in Kathryn's meetings was breaking out across the United States. It was in this time frame that the Voice of Healing ministry was established, and men like William Branham, Oral Roberts, A. Allen and many others were propelled onto the public stage. Kathryn was not associated with those groups, but stepped into the flow of what God's Spirit was doing across the nation and the world. In 1948, Kathryn held a series of meetings at Carnegie Hall in Pittsburgh. She eventually moved to Pittsburgh in 1950 and continued to hold meetings at Carnegie Hall until 1971. She was used by God to bring the charismatic message to many denominational churches, including the Catholic Church. She received a lot of criticism over this and was accused of being a closet Catholic. These were her best-known years. Her style was flamboyant. She would hold her famous miracle services, and the auditorium was filled to capacity every time. She was on radio and television shows. She was ordained in 1968 by the Evangelical Church Alliance. Hundreds of people were healed in her meetings, and even while listening to her on the radio or television, people she prayed for would often be hit with the power of God and be slain in the Spirit. Kathryn never claimed that she was the healer. She always pointed people to Jesus as their healer. Kathryn had been diagnosed with a heart problem in 1955. She kept a very busy schedule and overworked herself, especially in the 1970s. She traveled back and forth from Pittsburgh to Los Angeles frequently, as well as taking trips around the world. Her heart was enlarged, and Kathryn died on February 20, 1976, in Tulsa, following open heart surgery. Videos of some of her services are still available and continue to be popular today.
The very minute that you know that you're healed, the very second that you know, you owe it to Him to come and give testimony of that which He has done for you the very second. Don't come forward to be prayed for. Sit there, take it. I rebuke that sinus in the name. While I was speaking, there was someone to my left over here who's had sinus for years and years. You're in that part of the auditorium. You were instantly and completely healed on this side of the auditorium, in that section over there. There was a sinus healing right through here in this section of the auditorium. Near that same person, there was someone with arthritis of the shoulder. You're in this section. While I was preaching, there's been a cancer healing. Where is it? Here comes an empty wheelchair. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. I'm so glad for you, honey. Dear Jesus, I'm so glad for you. The power of the Holy Ghost has gone through this body. I'm so glad for you. Oh, Donnie, the power that's on you, the power of the Holy Ghost has gone through this body. Walk across there. Go on. Pick up your legs. Go on. Pick them up high, honey. Pick them up high. Just pick them up high. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Is there any pain in your body at all?
No, hasn't since I got on the bus yesterday.
Where are you from?
Alexandria,
Alexandria.
Louisiana. Dr. Clifton Harris
Governor, Louisiana.
Dr. Clifton Harris sent us.
Dr. Clifton Harris sent you.
Yes. He's been telling me ever since before.
The medical doctor over there has sent you. The doctors are sending their patients. Give the doctor a great big God.